Hello, and welcome to Fireside and Fairy Tale Knits. I'm so glad that you are able to join me today. I do hope that you enjoy this episode and that you will be inspired by what you see. Today I'm going to show you a garment that I have completed and a number of things that I'm working on. So let's begin with the first thing, which is called Robin's Nest and is my own design. It's a cardigan and I thoroughly enjoyed knitting this. It's made for the cold weather and it's colour knitting, so that you find that there is, through much of the garment, a double layer of wool to keep me cosy. The yarn that I have used is one of my favourites. It's Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight from Shetland. And I decided to go with simply two colours in this garment. The turquoise and this beautiful aubergine shade. I can give you the colours by number. The aubergine is FC55 and the turquoise is 75, FC34 and FC39. You can see through this garment that I've actually started the lower part by the hem with a slightly deeper colour of turquoise and then moved into a medium turquoise up through the garment, finishing with a much brighter, in fact duck egg blue for the neckline and for the button band. And I also have one row of crocheted turquoise at the wrists. Now I began this garment with the sleeves. For the aubergine, I had a cone and I wanted to finish the cone of aubergine. However, I would say that as far as cones go, though, it does make for less money being paid out for the yarn itself. The actual wool is quite greasy coming off the cone. It's not been finally treated. And so you have much more of a greasy feel when you're actually knitting the wool off the cone. And then you have to, of course, wash very well once, though still gently because it's wool, once you've finished the garment. I think on balance, I found lugging a cone around a bit cumbersome, and I do prefer balls of wool. So it was an experiment and it was worthwhile. Anyway, this beautiful colour is used for the sleeves and for the pattern itself. I started with a star stitch because I wanted a rather medieval effect at the beginning of the sleeve. And then as I increased to make a much wider sleeve as I went up the arm, after about 6 inches, I returned just a plain stocking stitch. The garment itself was knitted on circular needles, but it's not steeked. So I was going back and forward with along the circular needles. To make a contrast on this aubergine, which is quite strong, every second one I included a Rowan kidsilk in this deep mulberry colour. And you can see the texture, I think, in the light is changed from the row below. And again, the top one has a little bit of Rowan silk going through with the 2-ply jumper weight. And it does give a nice variation in the colour. And then I added just one row of a much paler kidsilk just for the waist, which I like that effect. The actual dimensions of the garment were rather dictated by the size of the roses. The rose design, I took some graph paper and designed it myself. And I had to have a size of rose that would meet up with the length of the garment that I required. So there were 4 roses going down and 6 along the back. So quite a wide garment. And I ceased with the pattern just here to make more of a yoke effect, just a plain yoke effect as I came up to the shoulders. The wrist and the neckline I finished in crochet, and the button band is just a very simple rib. And then the hem was 6 rows of stocking stitch, which I just folded over and I stitched the under part, the hem, in place. I always think having the right button is very important, is vital to finish off a garment. And I was very pleased to discover these buttons which actually have a glitter effect in them. But they do, I think they go very well with the garment. I think you can make or break a garment with the buttons. It's really important to take time, I feel, to choose to discover the right buttons. If I were doing this again, I would change it slightly. As I say, it's a heavy jumper, it's made for the winter, and I like to have a very cozy neck. And I do feel that this neckline, it really just didn't quite come up high enough. So in the meantime, what I'm doing to fill in this gap is to work with a 1-ply cobweb, and I'm knitting up a little lacy scarf that I can wrap around to just keep my neck warm when I'm wearing Robin's Nest. There we are. And I think I used 2.75mm needles for the tighter, smaller parts like the hem, and then the circular needle was a 350, 3.50. So there we are, Robin's Nest, a finished garment for you. The next garment that I have to show you, I have almost completed, and it felt rather like climbing Mount Everest, I have to say, and I feel a real sense of achievement at finally completing this. I'm calling it Sugar Plum Cardigan, and I started this before Christmas, and I love it. As you can see, I haven't quite finished sewing it up yet, and I can't wait to wear it. It feels really soft and cozy. I used Peep by West Yorkshire Spinners, and it's a 4-ply yarn. And I use the colour Piglet, which I think you can see really does look quite piglety. And I combine that with another favourite yarn that I use a great deal of, Rowan Kidsilk Haze. And this was in colour 00580. I think it's also named as Grace. So I combined these, and I used 2.75mm needles for the button band and for the rib, the hem and the wrist. And then I changed to 3.25 needles. But of course, my gauge will not be the same as yours. I've been referring to a wonderful book by a lady called Einband, B-U-D-D, and this is her sweater book, the modified drop that I've actually used as a basis for this garment. I decided to go for a slightly different and rather interesting neckline. It's called a cozy cable rib. I don't know if it's going to come up there, but it's reflecting, I think, rather well the actual overall lace, which is a leaf lace. And as I say, this actually, I did feel very happy when I finished it, because to tell you the truth, I was getting rather fed up of this seriously repetitive pattern, lace pattern. I think it had 16 rows, is that right? Yes, 16 row repeat on the lace pattern. And by the time, of course, I'd finished it, I knew the lace, all 16 rows off by heart. And in fact, it was easier than that. It's one of these lace patterns where the repeats are pearl. So you're knitting on the pattern on one side, and then you're simply doing a pearl straight back. And so there were only actually 8 lace lines of pattern to memorize. And the rib at the bottom is just a very simple, I think it was knit 2, what did I do here? Knit 1, purl 2 rib, knit 1, purl 2 rib. I'm quite fussy about my wrists. I like my wrists quite deep. And here are the sleeves. I'll just get them. A very deep rib on the wrist for the sleeve. So, and following Einband, you actually complete the button band first before having joined the shoulders. You then go to the button band, and then you will stitch the sides together, put the sleeves in. Then I'm done. And the button band here, I've just used the West Yorkshire Spinners Piglet. I didn't use the Rowan kidsilk for the button band. That's just simply my choice. And I made the buttonholes just by casting off 2 stitches and then casting them on again on the next row. And there are 8 here for that length. It's quite a long garment. And the button band itself is knit 2, purl 2 rib. And a very straightforward, simple cast off. It's so important, as I was saying before about Robin's Nest, to choose buttons that will enhance your garment. Having spent so much time on it, it's good to take time to choose. And I actually had these before. They're mother of pearl and they're pink. But I didn't have quite enough of them. I think I had 5. And going to my usual outlet, they were out of stock. So I had to wait another few days to buy what in total is 9. I'm going to have 8 on the actual button band, and then keep 1 in reserve in the hem just in case I lose one, which is always a good idea. So there we are, and hopefully the next time I could be wearing this for you, which will be lovely. I do refer to books. I have mostly been self-taught in more recent years, though obviously I was taught the basics of knitting when I was a child at school, and I think I've referred to that in previous episodes. One book that I do refer to a great deal is this one here, 750 Knitting Stitches, the Ultimate Knit Stitch Bible. And I came across an edging at the back of the book, here, tassel edging on page 283. It's a tassel rib, because I wanted to make a rather more decorative neckline for a cardigan. And this cardigan is again going to be based on an Einband template from her sweater book. The tassel edging goes round the neck. It's really pretty. I'll just show you it. And it's going to sit up, I think, in a very pretty fashion round the neck. This is a garment that is going to be a gift. And the young lady in question was lamenting the fact that a much loved cardigan that she had owned was developing holes, and she really was regretting, lamenting the fact. And this cardigan is in a bright green, and so I thought, well, it would be lovely to knit a replacement as a gift, as a surprise for her. So I started to search for this very particular colour of green and managed to find it very, very quickly, to my great surprise. There aren't too many strong greens around in knitting yarn. And I was delighted to find that it was a Lopi, which is Icelandic yarn. This is not coming up at all, is it? It's far too bright. There we are. Lopi Einband it's called, which is an Icelandic lace weight of 100% wool. And so I was looking at the actual texture of the wool, and it's quite different to a great many that I have used. It's quite rough to handle as you're knitting it. It's not fluffy at all when you're knitting it. So I didn't want to go too far anyway. And I thought the best thing to do is to, of course, make a swatch, make a sample to begin with, wash it thoroughly and dry it, and see if I was happy with the texture before I began on what is a relatively large project. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised, I have to say. And this is the little swatch that I made, and I did in fact introduce in the swatch this tassel rib, just as an experiment to see if I was happy with it. it's always very wise, in fact I think imperative, to make a swatch to begin with and to try out various things in a very small scale before launching into your actual project. And this was on 4mm needles, and I decided that was just, though this young lady lives in quite a warm climate, I thought it was just a little too thin, and though the yarn does come up nice and fluffy once it's been washed, it's quite soft. So I reduced the gauge and went for a smaller gauge by going for a smaller needle, and I ended up with a 3.25 set of needles. So there we are, that's just a start on this next garment. There's no tearing rush, but it's lovely, I find, to go from one colour to another, from one yarn to another, just mix around as you're knitting various projects. It means that you don't get too tired of the one thing. You can go on and bring the changes. So there we are, there's our Einband Lopi. And I'm calling this cardigan Daffodil. So there we are, our daffodil green. So lastly, what is in my basket? Again, this is Jameson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight. I love the feel of working with that weight of wool, and I enjoy wearing it. This, in fact, here is 2-ply jumper weight wool, and it keeps me cozy. Now, this is a jumper, not a cardigan, and I am definitely making good progress on this because a great deal of it is in a slightly larger needle, 4mm, and stocking stitch. And as I was saying, it's good to ring the changes and to perhaps have a whole run of plain stocking stitch, and then going over into colour or lace and then back again. I find I'm much better first thing in the morning knitting lace than, say, after 6 o'clock at night when my brain cells start to get fatigued. And it means that I can keep knitting but don't get bored or too fatigued with the one idea. So I do like to start with sleeves, and this is what I've done with this particular garment, and in fact I have completed the sleeves, and this is slightly borrowed and slightly my own design, and so we'll see how it ends up. But here we are, just a lovely sleeve, just very straightforward, couple of inches of rib on the cuff. I'll even go to 2.5 inches sometimes with a cuff. I do like a nice firm cuff. And I used 2.5mm needles for the cuff. As I say, I do like it tight. And this sleeve and the other one are being held on stitch holders at present, while I complete the other parts of the garment. Now, I'm racing through the back and the front, which are the identical in shape. This is quite bright, isn't it? However, I made just a little bit of a difference in the hem. I'd had it as rib, and then I added just one little, just 3 rows of a little lace variation just on the rib there. And there we are. Just a little variation on the rib. I'm knitting the back and the front at the same time. I do like circular knitting. I don't worry about steeks. I'm quite happy to prepare and make a steek. However, I love pearl, and I don't have an aversion to rows of pearl. But here we are with a separate back and a separate front for this particular garment, and I find it's really, really better if I can try and keep them more or less even, so that when I come up to the armholes, I'm going to have the back and the front complete, rather than just one side and then I have to begin all over again with the other. That happens with mittens and socks as well. I much prefer to make two at the same time. It just means that if I've made a mistake, then it's repeated and balanced on the other side. Or sometimes I just get lost in a colour pattern I might be designing, can't quite remember, didn't note exactly what I'd done, come to the next sock or mitten and racking my brains to remember. So there we are. And as I say, it's good to finish two parts at the same time. Now, as I was saying, this is slightly my design in that I have the sleeves finished. I'm coming up from the bottom up, but I'm also coming down from the neck down. I'm making a yoke, and I'm just thinking about how I'm going to make an aesthetically pleasing join when I come to the base of the yoke and the actual body part. So we'll wait and see. You'll have to come back once I've solved that problem and see what I did. So here's the little neck. Which way around is that? I think it's that way. I'm enjoying knitting this. I love lace knitting, and I loved Princess Diana, the late Princess Diana. In the 80s, there would be a lot of garments with the ruffled neck, which I think is very, very becoming. And she certainly went through a phase in her clothing of having these beautiful ruffled necklines. It's really, really suited her. It was lovely. And I think it's very soft on a lady's face to have something soft up at the neck. And as I was saying before, I love to have a cozy neck. So just a little bit done of the yoke, rather trepidarious about how I'm going to continue, and we'll just see where I stop the yoke patterning and start on plain. I haven't solved that yet. So if you have any comments or questions, just pop them down below. And if you've liked this episode, then please do like and share if you feel that's appropriate. And I hope you're inspired. I hope that there's been some information here that's been helpful to you. And come back soon and see how I'm getting on with my progress on my knitting. Lovely to see you. See you again. Bye-bye.